Shavua Tov, Gute Woch. It is Motzei Shabbos Parshas Va'era, the third day of Shvat. Welcome to the Daily Tanya. And as I mentioned last week, in the leap year, every Shabbos we have a long chapter in Tanya. And indeed, today's lesson is the entire chapter 16. So it's probably going to be a little longer than usual. So let's talk about it. In this chapter 16, the Alter Rebbe continues with describing what the Beinoni is doing, the intermediate person. Last chapter we learned about the two types of Beinoni. The one who serves Hashem and the one who serves Him not. And we said the one who serves God is the one who has the challenges. And that is why it's considered serving God. He has challenges. He overcomes the challenges. And therefore, whatever he does is considered serving Hashem. One who serves Him not is a person who does everything right. But it's by nature. He's doing everything. He doesn't have a passionate nature to go to look for physical, material passions. And therefore, this person is not considered serving Hashem. He's doing the right thing, but is not working actively to serve Hashem. In this chapter 16, the Alter Rebbe goes on to explain. He gives us two basic principles about the one who serves God. The Beinoni who goes with the challenges, but to serve Hashem, overcoming the challenges. And he's talking about what he mentioned in the end of the last chapter, that there are two types of work. And the person who works, who serves Hashem, there's two types. There's one, what he calls avodah tama, complete work. And that is when the Beinoni thinks and meditates about the greatness of Hashem. And as a result, it leads for him to develop an actual passionate feeling towards Hashem. And therefore, it leads him to do the action, to do the mitzvahs, to study Torah, because he feels it. Whatever he understood, he feels in his heart. And that leads him to do it right, because certainly there's no comparison when you serve Hashem, when you're doing something for anybody. If you're doing something out of love because you feel you want to do it, so the action is different. You're fully into it. You're fully into it with every part of you. That is one principle. Then he says the second principle is that sometimes there's a person who, yes, it does meditate about the greatness of Hashem, and he understands and he has a strong conviction that this is the right thing to do, but yet it does not affect him to the point that he will actually become feeling a palpable feeling in his heart that he has a fiery love to Hashem. He just doesn't have it. To this person, the Alter Rebbe says, yet there is a way for him to connect to Hashem. And that too is considered a perfect service of Hashem. So let's see inside the two principles what the Alter Rebbe explains. Chapter 16. Says the Alter Rebbe, "V'zeh klal godol ba'avodas Hashem labeinoni." This is an important principle regarding the divine service of the Beinoni. The essential thing is to govern and rule the nature that is in the left part of the heart. Meaning the part of the heart that draws the person to do the wrong things. So in other words, it's not enough if you're going to do things because you feel it's the right thing and I'm going to do it against my will. No, we need to conquer the nature. You need to work on the nature, that the nature itself should change and that you should want to do it. You should feel it. How is it done? By means of the divine light that illuminates the divine soul abiding in the brain, and to rule the desires of the heart. To enable him to master his desires, the Beinoni requires, in addition to the natural ability of one's mind to govern his heart, as we mentioned in the previous chapter, this is the nature of a person, that the mind can control the heart. But in addition to that, you need more help. It's not enough to really change your nature. You need the help of the divine light, which illuminates his mind upon contemplating God's greatness. So Hashem is telling you, he's giving you the help. That when you contemplate on God's greatness, you are going to succeed to overcome the heart. And Alter Rebbe goes on in details more. This mastery of one's nature and desire is achieved when he meditates in his mind on the greatness of the blessed, infinite God. So to create through his understanding a spirit of knowledge and fear of God in his mind. And that goes both ways, not to do the prohibitions, and the love, in other words, the fear of Hashem leads the person to avoid doing something Hashem does not want. And the love of Hashem leads a person to do the positive commandments. This knowledge and fear will cause him to turn away from the evil condemned by the Torah or by our sages, even from a minor rabbinic prohibition, heaven forbid. Even the smallest prohibition from the rabbinical prohibition is also as important to him, because he understands that ultimately this is the will of Hashem, to follow the Torah, to follow the instructions of the Torah, including all of the instructions of the rabbinical commandments. And on the other end, when he develops a feeling of love to Hashem, that will lead him to have the desire to cleave to Hashem through doing the positive mitzvahs and through studying the Torah. Contemplation on God's greatness will bring about also a love of God, which will reveal itself in the right part of his heart, the seat of the godly soul, or the godly soul's emotional faculties. So this will lead him to connect to Hashem with a longing and desire to cleave to him by fulfilling the precepts of the Torah and of the rabbis. Again, there's the positive commandments that are biblical, some are rabbinical, and the study of the Torah, which is equivalent to them all. So that's number one. The rule that this is the way, the ultimate way to connect to Hashem is by meditating on the greatness of Hashem, which leads to fear of Hashem and love of Hashem, as something passionate, that you feel it in your heart, and thereby this motivates and this makes the desire to do the right things. But then sometimes, what about the Beinoni that thinks about the greatness of Hashem and is contemplating, meditating, but you understand it, but it doesn't affect you. You don't feel it. Says the Alter Rebbe gives us advice also to this person. Furthermore, one must know an additional important principle in the Beinoni's service of God. Even if one's intellect and understanding are incapable of producing a revealed love of God in his heart. To to make it burn as it ought, with fiery flames, with a desire and a longing and a passion manifestly felt in the heart to cleave to God. So some people don't have it. Or could be people who can have it, but at certain times they don't have it. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. What do they have? They just have the hidden love, the natural hidden love that is concealed in the heart. Instead, the love is hidden in his mind and in the recesses of his heart. And the Alter Rebbe goes on and says here in the note that really, in many cases, it's not really due to anything of their fault. Some souls come, what he calls it, from a place of the root of the soul comes from an emotion that is not yet developed. He calls it an impregnated place, not given birth completely. So, in other words, the fact that certain people are not capable of developing openly an actual feelings through their contemplation is because their soul is not capable of doing it. Says the Alter Rebbe, the reason for this inhibition is that this person's intellect and nefesh, ruach and neshama, the three parts of the soul, they derive from the so-called ibur, conception, and concealment within the supernal understanding, and not from the stage of Leda, which means birth, meaning it's not developed yet, and revelation. And as is known to the students of the Kabbalah, it's a Kabbalistic concept, but basically saying that it's not due to any of their fault. However, so these people, he's talking about a person, the Beinoni, is not capable of developing the actual feeling in the heart, but what they do understand, what they are capable of understanding, is in the mind. They understand that this is the right thing to do. I need to be connected to Hashem. I understand the greatness of Hashem. I understand there is a concept that you want to be connected. This means that the heart comprehends with a spirit of wisdom and understanding in the brain. The greatness of the blessed, infinite God before whom all else is as naught. Asher al kain. For which reason, for which reason it is fitting and due unto him, blessed be he, that the soul of every living thing should pine for him. We should want to cleave, and to become absorbed in his divine light. וגם נפשי ורוחו אשר בקרבו כך יעשה להם. לי כל יסלו בחשיקה וחפיצו, לא צייס מן התקן הוא הגוף לדווקא בי. It is likewise fitting for his soul, the nefesh and ruach within him, to languish for him with a fervent desire to leave their sheath, meaning the body, which surrounds and conceals the soul like a sheath, in order to cleave to him. So that is once you understand the greatness of Hashem, once you understand that everything else is nothing in front of Hashem. So where do you want to be? You want to be with the essence of Hashem. And the soul, that's what the soul wants. Except that the soul is trapped in the body. So intensely, his thoughts continue. Should his nefesh and ruach long for God, that only against their will do they dwell in the body. They are bound to it like deserted wives, meaning women who don't have their husbands and they're tied. They're like in jail, in prison. V'leis machshava dilhoin tfisa beklal kim kasher tfisa mislabeshes v'tira mitzviseha. In their present state, their thought cannot grasp God at all. Because it's placed in the body, and the body conceals and is not able to grasp and connect to Hashem, except when it grasps and vests itself in the Torah and its commandments. By studying Torah and observing its commandments, one grasps God's will and his wisdom, which are one with God himself. So when you study Torah, you study God's Torah. You understand God's will, God's wisdom. So you are becoming one with Hashem at that moment. And as we mentioned in the previous part of the Tanya, the example that the Rebbe uses, the metaphor of one who hugs the king. When you hug a king, it doesn't matter if you hug the king if he's wearing only one garment or he's wearing 5 garments. The king is inside, so you hug the king. So the same thing when you study the Torah. Even though that when you study Torah, what do you study about? Physical objects. You study laws of the Torah regarding one who buys a house. There's certain law, many laws about buying a house. How is it acquired? We study now in the laws of the Rambam, the Maimonides. What's the way of buying a house? What is the way of buying a cow? All of these are laws in the Torah. And so you're dealing with a house, you're dealing with a cow, you're dealing with material things. And yet this is God's will. So God placed himself in such, so to speak, so-called garments. So when you study those garments, you're hugging the king. It doesn't matter how many garments, even though it's in physical metaphors, you're still studying Hashem's wisdom. That's what Alter Rebbe says, as illustrated previously by the example of one who embraces the king. Although the king is dressed in robes, this does not detract from the royal embrace. Similarly, although the Torah and its commandments are closely material matters, yet since they express God's will and wisdom, when one grasps them, it is as though he grasped God himself. So therefore, so when you think about it, you come to a conclusion. What's the best thing for me to do? To sit and study Torah, to connect to God. When I study Torah, when I connect with God's wisdom, all the above thought passed through his mind and heart and lead him to resolve that it is therefore fitting and proper for them, for his nefesh and ruach, to embrace God with all the heart's soul and might. Which means the Hainukim Tayag Mitzvahs B'Maisa B'Dibur Machshava Sheyasogas V'Yediyas Aterik and Iskalael. This means, in practical sense, to fulfill the 613 commandments in act, speech, and thought. The thought being the comprehension and knowledge of the Torah as explained above. So now, says the Alter Rebbe, when you're going to think that way, when you're going to understand this, and you're going to act based on this understanding, you're going to do it. Therefore, even though there's something missing in between, meaning the feeling, the passion is not there. As we said before, we're talking about a person who can contemplate in his mind, but is not capable of developing an actual feeling of love and fear to Hashem because of this understanding. So here the Alter Rebbe says, nevertheless, it's considered a proper service of Hashem. Consequently, when the Beinoni ponders this subject in the recesses of his heart and mind, understanding, and heart and mind's understanding, upiv v'libo shavin, and his mouth and heart are in accord, meaning what his heart feels finds full expression in his speech. Shemekayim came befiv kefi shenigma betvunas libo b'moicha, that he fulfills with his mouth, meaning in speech, the resolve of his mind's and heart's understanding, which is study Torah, do the mitzvahs, namely to direct his desire towards God's Torah, meditating on it day and night in oral study. And the same thing was in action. And when his hands and other bodily organs, they too carry out the commandments, as was resolved in his mind's and heart's understanding. So, Alter Rebbe, what happens? הרי תבונה זו מסלבשת במייס הדיבור מחשבס עתירה מצווי סרלי יש להם בחינס מייכן וחיוס וגטפים לפרחה לאלה. Then when he implements this resolution, this tevuna, which is the intellectual emotion, because it's such an emotion, such an intellect that you understand, you have such a positive, deep understanding, a conviction. So it's almost like an emotion. What he calls it tevuna, it's like an intellectual emotion, which cannot properly be called love or fear, but tevuna, literally understanding. So when this is clothed in act and speech and thought of the Torah and its commandments, providing them with intellectual power, vitality, and wings that enables them to soar on high. What does that mean? It says in the Zohar, learned in the Tanya earlier, that in order for the Torah mitzvahs to fly up high, to go up, to reach up to higher levels, they need wings. What are the wings that help our Torah mitzvahs to fly up high? This is the ahava and yira, the fear and love of Hashem. But here we're talking about such a person that is not capable of developing the actual fear and love. Nevertheless, as the Alter Rebbe, because he contemplates and understands it, and he has this conviction, and this conviction leads him to actually do it, and that conviction also becomes like wings that helps the Torah mitzvahs to soar up high. The love and fear referred as tavuna, although not heartfelt emotion, nevertheless, they serve as wings for the Torah and mitzvahs, for one's Torah mitzvahs, in the same way as if he practiced them with real fear and love as revealed in the heart. In which case, if he has a real feeling, real emotions, he would have performed them with a desire, fervor, and passion that are felt in the heart and soul, thirsting for God due to the flaming love of God in his heart, as explained above. So this person, even though he doesn't have really such palpable emotions, nevertheless, being that his conviction leads him to do, it is considered as if he has them. For it is this tevuna, this emotional intellect in his mind and in the recesses of his heart that leads him to engage in the Torah mitzvahs as explained above. Had he not meditated on this tevuna, he would not have occupied himself with them at all, but with the physical needs alone. If you wouldn't be contemplating the greatness of Hashem, you would be busy making yourself comfortable and happy doing other things that you like, not necessarily connecting to Hashem, through studying Torah. And he says, even if a person who has a nature of being studious by nature, nevertheless, he loves himself more. And the fact that he studies Torah is because somewhat the understanding of the greatness of Hashem and the conviction that this is the right thing to do, that leads him to do it. Even if he is a studious, assiduous student by nature, nevertheless, he naturally loves his body more. And this, says the Alter Rebbe, he explains a very interesting saying of our sages. Our sages say And it says, if a person has a good thought, God considers it and it combines it to deeds. What does that mean? The real simple understanding is that if you had in mind to do something good, you wanted to give somebody a sandwich, a poor man, and you come over to him, you want to buy him a sandwich, and then somebody else gives him a sandwich, he doesn't need it anymore. So your thought of doing something good, God considered it as if it's actually done. But here the Alter Rebbe says a little different. He says what that means, the good thought, God combines it to action. Meaning, the good thought of your conviction of doing the right thing to do, you have a thought and you have an action, you're doing the mitzvah, but it's missing the feelings, because you just can't develop this feeling. God is doing the combining. In combining this thought is considered it as if you actually have the feeling. That's what the Alter Rebbe says. Our sages of blessed memory hinted at this. And they said, the Holy One, blessed be He joins a good thought to the deed. So the language is a little strange. If you would understand the simple meaning, that it's considered as if done, then you should say so. The simple meaning of the phrase that one intends to do a mitzvah, but is prevented from doing so, God ascribes to him as though he had actually performed it. It warrants the expression, Torah considers him as though he has actually done it. That should have said. But it doesn't say that. What does it say? It says, God joins the good thought to the deed. What does it mean? He joins the good thought to the deed. And that's why the Alter Rebbe explains it in a different way. Elohim, the explanation, however, is because it is the revealed fear and love of God in the heart that vest themselves in one's performance of the commandments, giving them vitality to soar on high. If you want your mitzvahs to soar on high, it has to have wings. What are the wings? The wings are the feelings, the passion, the emotions. For the heart is also corporal, like the other organs of the body, which are the instrument of the action. So therefore, in order to elevate the action, you need something which is closer to the action, which is the emotions. But the intellect is much in a distance. It doesn't affect it, so it's not so close to the action. And that doesn't have the power to elevate the action. So the heart is able to elevate the actions. Why? The heart is, however, internal and is the organ source of vitality. Therefore, because the heart in its corporality is close to the other organs and also provides their vitality, it can clothe itself in their actions to be their wings, elevating them. However, but when we talk about the intellect, they are too aloof, they're too distant from the action, and they don't have the ability to elevate the action. However, the above mentioned fear and love that are in the intelligence of the brain and the recesses of the heart, they are of a far higher order than the level of action. Therefore, they cannot clothe themselves in the performance of the commandments, to become their intellectual power and vitality to elevate them so that they may soar on high. They cannot do it. That is why we need Hashem's help. That's the point of the statement, that God joins the thought to the action. Im lo ish HaKadosh Baruch Hu metzarfon umechabon mibchinas hamaaseh. If not for the fact that God joins and unites them together with the action, so that they may serve as its wings. And they, the tevuna, fear and love, and the conviction in the mind, they are called good thoughts, for they are not actual fear and love in the revealed state in the heart. But only in the intelligence of the brain and the recesses of the heart, as mentioned above. And he brings it that in the Kabbalistic terms, it's called also connected, that Tevuna has the letters of Bain and Bas, which means son of daughter, which is son and daughter refers to love and fear. Thus it is also written in the Zohar and Eitz Chaim that the Hebrew word Tevuna, understanding, comprises the letter which form the words of Bain and Bas, son and daughter, which in terms of human emotions represent love and fear. Sometimes the Tevuna descends to become the intelligence of the feminine aspect of a small image, meaning the recipient of the divine midas or attributes which are referred to collectively as the small image, which in the human sphere refers to the letters of Torah and mitzvahs. Now, Maskil Yavin, this is more of a Kabbalistic thing. It says the initiated and shall understand, meaning the Kabbalistic reference contained in the note will be more fully elucidated in the course of further study. That will explain later. In any case, it explains this Kabbalistically why these things happen. That sometimes the Tevuna goes directly to action. However, so this connection is what Hashem does. Going back to our discussion, that the intellectual conviction to do the right thing and the action that one does the right thing, although it's missing the emotion in between, God is the one that combines the thought to the action. צירוף זה מצרף הקדוש ברוך הוא כדי לעלות מעשה המצווה ועסק התורה הנעשים על ידי מחשב התורה הנזכרת לעיל עד העולם הבריאה. But God affects this joining of Tevuna to action in order to elevate the performance of the commandments and the Torah study, which are carried out through the influence of the good thoughts, meaning the Tevuna, mentioned above, into the world of Beria. Now, what is he saying? The world of Beria, what does that mean? So we explained in other lessons, there are the four worlds, four spiritual worlds. We live in a world called world of Asiya, or the world of action, physical action. It's called the world of Yetzirah, which is the world of emotions. Then there is the world of Beria, the world of intellect, godly intellect. Then this world of Atzilus is one with Hashem. So we, it says, by elevating the actions, what we do, the mitzvahs that we do, we want to elevate it to the world of Beria, the world of the godly intellect. To the world of the emotion, the world of Yetzirah, that is elevated even without this kind of wings. And that's what it says. The world of Beria being the level to which ascend the performance of Torah mitzvahs when motivated by a fear, love deriving from one's meditation and which are truly revealed in one's heart. So there's certain things that you do a mitzvah with intellectually generated emotion, that is elevated to the world of the intellect. But sometimes you're doing mitzvahs with a natural emotion, which that is elevated only to the second world, which is the world of Yetzirah. That's what it says, אבל בלאו הכן נמה אוילים על ידי דחילו ערכים מוטיביים, המסתורים בלב כל ישראל, בתלדויסם, כמו שהסבר לכמון באריכוס. However, even without this joining, they rise to the world of Yetzirah, which is the second world, starting from the bottom, by means of the natural fear and love, which are latent in the heart of all Jews from birth, as will be later explained and at length. So, in summary, even he who cannot create a conscious, palpable love and fear of God in his heart can serve God with a perfect service through the tevuna emotion, the intellectual emotion, the conviction. Thereby, too, his performance of Torah and mitzvahs will ascend to the same level as that motivated by a revealed love and fear of God. That's the end of the chapter. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we should continue B'ezrat Hashem tomorrow. B'ezrat Hashem. Have a wonderful week.